Ultimate Spider-Man #1, written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Marco Cucchetto, colors by Matthew Wilson, letters by VC's Corey Petit. And I don't always read the intro things and the recap, but I think you kind of need to do that here. Me and you read all the things leading into it, and I kind of forgot a lot of the stuff.
Me too.
Also, when you jump in here, it seems like a lived-in universe a bit more than I thought. You have things that you might have to pick up as well from the issue itself. Now, if I would ask you right now before I read that, do you think that people who didn't read that stuff could jump in? Because I think they can.
Yes, absolutely.
You might be a little confused about some things, but obviously it's the Ultimate Universe, so you're going to start to wonder, okay, what's going on and what's happening? And even if you have read the stuff, me and you were talking, the thing that I was most concerned or wondering about is, how do you get Spider-Man? Because we saw that the maker ended up making sure there wouldn't be a Spider-Man, and there wouldn't be.
He stepped on the spider. We saw him. He stepped on it.
So when we get into this, I mean, I've seen some people speculate that Peter wasn't going to be Spider-Man. That maybe I saw somebody like full out say they knew it was going to be Harry, and Peter in the book was going to play almost a Harry point of the best friend. I saw a lot of things going on. Just crazy stuff.
He doesn't have the hair for it. He can't pull it off.
Yeah, well, again, you have that, and then people would probably be like, well, then does Peter become the Green Goblin? Now you're getting wacky.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if Hickman would even make people, kind of comes in, and it does play out almost like Hickman actually is going to say, hey, everybody, some of the things you've been wanting, I'm going to be able to do them here. Hopefully that continues, but here is the recap. 20 years ago, the Maker prevented a radioactive spider from biting a young Peter Parker. He likewise prevented the creation of any other superheroes and formed a secret council to rule the world from the shadows. When Tony Stark learned the dark history of this universe, he sought to undo it, prompting the Maker's council to attack Manhattan, killing thousands and frame Stark for it. Peter Parker has lived his life unaware of the Maker's council or the truth behind the spider, but that is about to change. So you get it right there. Peter Parker, okay, how is this going to happen? By the end, we'll see, and me and you both are worried that it's going to be that easy a thing. And when we get to it, we'll discuss it a little more. What Hickman does in this, though, is he gives you like a very... I'm not going to say that it's not boring. I liked it. It's a slow pace to reveal things in this world, but each of the things are pretty cool. And by the end of it, I think that as I was reading it, I had one bit of a feeling. But then when I got done and thought about the things, I was like, you know what? Like I said earlier, like that's pretty good. I like some of the character work. I love the dialogue in it, and I think he does a good job.
It's a lot of like just regular people talking, it seems like, and it's interesting.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. And me and you are going to talk about a couple books this week, and that seems like something you should be able to do. Like, hey, it's just two guys that...
It doesn't have to always be somebody punching somebody or whatever. They can be having regular conversations.
And the dialogue feels right for the characters, and actually you can get the play of their character through the dialogue as well. It's just some other writers don't seem to be able to get that. But Peter wakes up in the morning, and you have this play where he's getting dressed. He's going to go off to work, and he looks tired. He keeps saying, it looks better than me, but he puts on his wedding ring. Another thing I will point out, that people were somehow under the opinion that this was going to be a play where Peter and Mary Jane weren't married or they're going to get divorced. And Hickman really plays with that throughout this first issue.
It places him clearly at 35 years old, because it says he's 15 when he's adopted, right? And then 20 years have passed, so he's around 35, which is cool.
Yeah, and that makes him becoming Spider-Man a little different than becoming Spider-Man at 15. So that's pretty cool. And he goes out, there's his kids, and there's MJ, his wife. And I think that people should be very excited about this. You have May and his son Richard, and that's pretty cool. Richard seems like he's a little darker. Like he likes the reading, but May right away, anytime you have a daughter of MJ and Peter, it's so cool. And she's there and they're eating breakfast. Mary Jane comes out and they keep talking about something that has to go on that next day and that Peter wasn't sleeping. But there's more to just the sleeping than just that, because then you have the sphere that May is playing with. And then Peter grabs and says, hey, that's not.
Yeah, stay away from that kid.
And I thought, I'm like, what is that? And I was going to ask you. I'm like, well, I'll read the issue and see. And by the end, I'm like, holy crap, like she shouldn't be anywhere near that. Why do you have that?
He should have that locked up in a safe.
Yeah, why is this thing out on the table while they're eating bacon? But you have the play here where Peter does seem a little standoffish, but Mary Jane and the kids are great, and they go off. So you might be a little worried, but the worry would come from the Peter angle, but he goes off to the Daily Bugle, so that's still in play. And when you're reading this, you're going to sit there and think to yourself like a checklist. Okay, he works at the Daily Bugle, check. Okay, there's J. Jonah Jameson, check. And you have J. Jonah just yelling for Parker, you know, his regular deal. Everybody's like looking like, oh my God, Peter is a little late. But the Parker ends up being the managing editor, Ben Parker.
Dun, dun, dun.
This point, I mean, even seeing the kids eating at the table, breakfast, whatever, that doesn't hit as much as this is one of the biggest changes.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, this is a big page turn here. Yeah, for sure.
So you get that, and it's like Parker, and there's Uncle Ben. And I said to you, anytime you read any sort of Elseworlds, anytime you get an ultimate, it's either going to be Ben is dead or Aunt May. So when you see Uncle Ben there, I just thought, R.I.P. Aunt May. And you even saw her on a picture on the mantle when Peter was getting dressed and got his wedding ring. So I'm like, the thing though I thought then, Hickman will do something different. No, that's always the case, it seems. But we have a way to tie it into everything that I thought was pretty cool. But this whole play about Ben and everybody's worried about him. This J. Jonah is actually a really nice guy. You know, he has that rough exterior that he would, but it's really showing you that he is a nice guy.
He doesn't have 20 years of dealing with Spider-Man bothering him, too, which...
J. Jonah shows that even if he doesn't have Spider-Man, eventually he'll get to something. Yep. That he'll start yelling about a menace, and that'll end up being the terror attack of Tony Stark.
True.
But he's there, and, you know, they're doing their thing, and Uncle Ben, they have this thing that they have to go to. They keep saying this thing, and I'm like, okay, well, is this an anniversary of Aunt May's death? Is it a funeral? Whatever it might be. It gets bigger. I didn't even think of what it would be. Peter comes in. They have to go off. They have to go off to this important thing. Ben kind of leaves, and Peter, he wants to know if Uncle Ben's okay. He asks J. Jonah, and Jay's like, yeah, we talk about our feelings. I mean, they're old guys, and it's kind of funny. But again, this is the character work in the dialogue. That's really good. And he's like, yeah, and J. Jonah says, you should ask him yourself. But then before Peter leaves, he says, wait a minute, you don't have a tie. And this is like such a weird, like you were talking about, you don't have to have punchy all the time. Like this is a really nice moment.
Yeah, this is pretty nice.
I mean, J. Jonah gives Peter his tie. Says, here, you need a tie. You have to look respectable. Puts
and he ties it for him, too.
Yeah, he ties it. It's really nice. Peter actually says, I don't really deal with ties. He's like, well, you're going to have to. And I even like afterwards, he goes, listen, you're not any bit near respectable, but at least you look like it. And then as J. Jonah would say, you better bring back that tie. Because he's not going to let him just have the tie, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would have had him probably throwing shade a little bit at Uncle Ben for not teaching him how to tie a tie over the years.
I think that Ben is just, and also, I guess Peter just doesn't like ties.
He looks like a mess. He's pretty disheveled. He needs to iron his shirt, too. I mean,
he stayed up all night, and you think at this point it would have been because of what they're going to. And they're going to the memorial of the Stark terror attack. Aunt May died in the attack.
Yeah.
So that's why they're there. And obviously upset. And as they're talking about it and say, well, how are you doing? And Uncle Ben says, your parents died when you were 15. We took you in, treated you like a son. We love you. Me and Aunt May loved you. But is there ever a day that it goes by without you thinking and getting upset about your parents? And he says, no, every day. And he's like, that's how I feel then. And it works. I mean, it's really a nice deal. And in the meantime, Mary Jane and the kids have come, but they're kind of going to stand back a bit and not get that much. They're going to stand with them, but they're not really talky in this. And then you have Father Matt Murdock. He comes up and gives his little thing about, hey, listen, we miss them, but they're always going to be in our dreams and our hearts. When you go to sleep, you'll dream of your angels, trying to make things, nice. And then they say, and it's a weird way he introduced them. He's like, hey, we're going to introduce another speaker, one of your own. 2 names are on this. And we find out Norman Osborn and, his wife are dead. Hey, come on up here, Harry.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, and Harry comes up and he's like, yeah, thanks a lot, Father Murdoch. I appreciate the words. And yeah, I'm kind of upset. You know what? I'm really pissed off. And he starts I thought they were going to have to grab him off. Like all of a sudden the band would start playing. They got to grab him the heck off because he just starts getting dark. It's like, it's not enough. I want revenge. And he's so angry to maybe set up what's coming up in this, because boy, and even I think it's Mary Jane who says that was really nice until the end because it was so bad. And they even say, and again, Hickman is giving you some information in subtle ways of, do you even know that, Harry? Because at the end, you do have Uncle Ben shaking Harry's hand. They're going to go, and it's that Harry or Norman had been interviewed a lot by Ben over the years. So they kind of had a weird little connection there.
Well, Harry never went to Empire State University, too, with these guys either, I guess.
Yeah, he never had any of that. So they don't even know him. They end up, I think I met him maybe once or whatnot, but they don't know Harry. So there's not that there. And maybe that's going to be a play, too, of Harry not being as, nice at points. Or maybe, we'll see how that affects.
He's going to be a lot more like his dad, I think.
Yeah, because he didn't have Peter or MJ or anybody around maybe to be friends. But when you end up having Ben's like, yeah, we've got to get back to work. And they go back to the Daily Bugle. And earlier, Jay Jonas said, and I like the way he said, hey, we got a meeting with the money later.
Yeah. That's why he stays behind. That makes sense. He didn't go to the memorial.
Yeah, he had to deal with this. And so when Ben gets back, he walks in and Jay Jonas quitting. He ends up, I quit. And he storms out. Now, I thought they were going to play this of, there he goes for the 8th time this week. Because that, you know what I mean? It's weird having him not fully in control, but then him quitting. But that feels like something like he would storm out all the time. But Ben goes into talking like, well, what's going on? And even when they walk by, Jay Jonah doesn't even say anything really to Ben. He just like storms by, looks at him and leaves.
Yeah.
And then Ben says, Peter, you keep your head down. Like, you go over there. I got to see what's going on, and goes in. Basically, they're told, like we said at the beginning, that they're not allowed to really report heavy on this terror attack, all that stuff going on with Stark, all this stuff that's been reported, that has become the obsession of the paper. And the money doesn't like that. The money is Fisk. And so things are starting to like really churn at this point. I love Robbie. It's like, Robbie, you okay with this? He's like, my pension's coming up. I'm okay with anything.
Yeah.
I'll deal with it.
I'm close to retirement.
And you have Ben there, and he's, and you wonder, like, is he going to stay? Or, and he smiles at this one point where you see him from like outside looking into this room, and he's smiling because he hasn't really liked this job, it seems, the way he talks about it later. He quits too. He's out. And so and Jay Jonas seems like he's been waiting for him. Like, he did gather up his stuff, but they're going to go off together and just quickly. It is a big part of it. And I think that if somebody's going to complain, it might be that there's a real big centering on Jay Jonah and Ben, especially now they go off to drink and they're going to start a new paper. I thought it would be podcast, or maybe like a YouTube channel would have been funny.
Still could be.
But yeah, these two old guys, they only know one thing, news. And there is that funny play where Ben says, if we're going to do news, we're going to tell all the truth. And Jay Jonah goes, we ain't going to do that. That's not what the news is. We'll not lie.
Yeah.
We just, so it's kind of that funny little play. But Peter then catches up to them. And it really affects Peter. And we find out later, and again, going through this a second time, you really realize some of the little things. Because Peter shows up thinking, oh my, they just had the memorial. Ben quit. Jay Jonah quit. What is going on? And goes in, and Ben and Jay Jonah are happy. They're all excited. We're going to start this new thing. And he kind of gets that play of like, why can't I do that? These old guys. But he does have his family. He has MJ and the kids to think of. And that's where you even have Ben. He doesn't even have Aunt May now. So he could easily do that. And so there's that little play, but it really does come down to, can you just keep doing something you don't want to do? Coupled with the fact that when we do go back to the apartment, you have Peter, there's MJ, and he says goodnight to the kids, and then he starts talking to MJ, and it really starts feeling like he's going to want a divorce. But we end up where what he's saying, and he says, I need to change me. Because we then find out that the night before, a future Tony Stark has come back and given him the sphere that basically explains what has happened to the world.
Yeah, Kang Tony Stark, I guess.
Yeah.
Time traveler.
The time traveler deal is saying, here, everybody, you got to do this. Here's the sphere. Check it out if you want to do this. I hope you do, because he even says at the end of this message from the future, I hope that when I come out of this room, I'll be greeted by all you superheroes. But he ends up getting a sphere that has the radioactive spider. But it also tells him, you were supposed to be a hero. So that whole thing that's been nagging him about not really doing much, it's been, getting to him this whole day as well. So then when he sees Uncle Ben, And J. Jonah just happy to start something new and be what they always wanted to do and whatnot. That even spurs him on even more. And then at the end, you see him with the spider. He gets it out of this, test tube, and it ends up biting him. And at the end, you don't really get the full picture of him as Spider-Man, but you get to see him there. And we'll have to wait till next issue to see more. And in this, though, the other big thing, because that's all the Peter stuff. You do have Fisk leave the conference, this whole thing, goes to get in his car. The car blows up, and you see Green Goblin. You're like, holy crap. Like, that's a huge thing. But all in all, like, it's really like setting up the whole universe and trying to make it right, especially starting. And it's cool that they start with Spider-Man because that's kind of the deal. But Fisk seems to have been blown up. Maybe he survived. It's hard to tell. But you see a Green Goblin that's very much an armored looking, very much like what would be the movie.
Yeah, so they corrected that mistake. We were talking about that.
Yeah, because that beast-looking Green Goblin from the Ultimate Universe before, I didn't like it at all myself. So you can only assume that would be Harry, but who knows? Maybe that's the twist. But it's funny, what I kind of get with Hickman here is he's going to change the things that work in the idea of Peter not being Spider-Man back in the day. Aunt May dies, not Uncle Ben, because without Spider-Man, Uncle Ben doesn't die. Because there isn't that whole play of all that in and out of what happened when that night that Ben died. So that makes sense. And then when he goes, it doesn't feel like he's trying to change things just to change them. He seems to be working these things out in his mind to make it feel, more realistic of what would happen, and basically centering on there was no Spider-Man. So what would happen from there, including without a Spider-Man, Mary Jane and are married and they have kids, which it's kind of that wink at people like, you want to have Mary Jane and Peter married, but really the only way that would work if he wasn't Spider-Man, even in a whole way of like Marvel itself and why they do the stuff they do. And it's kind of cool. But overall, I like the art. I thought it was pretty good. I'm excited about it. I want to, obviously keep reading, but what would you give this?
I mean, but there's just real quick, the foundation of the Spider-Man mythos is his Uncle Ben dies, and that gives him the responsibility and the power, and that's not a part of his story now. So it's kind of changes
but Uncle
the dynamic.
Ben is still there to, if he, you kind of feel like he probably would have taught him that already, but
you would hope so, but
die.
It's not the same though. It's a little different, which is you got a guy in a suit. His name's Peter Parker, but a lot of the foundational stuff is not there.
I didn't get the idea though that he's bad.
No,
Maybe
he's not
he'll
bad.
Just end up like he's like, I don't know.
He's a family man now. He has 2 kids.
I mean, maybe he'll be a little worried about those more than he would have before. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I think it's interesting to see he has a son, which we've never seen that before. I think it's always been a daughter, which is an interesting
and we
element.
Get her, and then the added Richard there as well.
I mean, I like this a lot. So
yeah, I do.
I'll give it a 9. It's a very good first issue.
As well. I thought it was really good. So I'll give it a 9 as well. I'm looking forward to the next issue.
It.
See maybe some more things. Maybe we'll see who that. I think the Green Goblin identity might go on for a little bit, but we'll have to see how it goes. And it's a good start to the Ultimate stuff, and then we'll have Black Panther and then X-Men coming up in a little bit. So hopefully
I just get worried.
Be as good as this.
We were talking about it before. Like, is this going to be a 100-issue run, 200-issue run? Probably not, but that's really what you need.
We need something that'll be long. We hope that Hickman doesn't get bored and leave.
Yeah, it'd be cool if he stayed on it for a long time.
Hopefully he will. So we'll see how it goes.